What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Pit Limiter Podcast. It is episode number 10, and I am your host, Zach Buchanan. Joining me, as always, John Poole III. What's up, buddy?
Oh, not too much, Zach. How's it going?
Pretty good. We had a week off. This past week was Easter, so we had last week's show off. We're back at it again, though. We've got a lot to talk about. A lot's happened in really the last 2 weeks. So we're going to break it all down and stop and go. JP3, what do you got for us?
So the first bit of news that I have for you is, according to the editor-in-chief of the Formula One magazine, Andre Vermeerna, an agreement between Liberty Media and Dutch officials has all but confirmed a return to Zandvoort for the Dutch Grand Prix.
So this year Sonoma is running a different layout. They're running the carousel layout, which is part of what IndyCar runs. It was also announced in light of that, they're also running a shorter race distance. Instead of running 110 laps, as originally advertised, they're running 90 laps instead.
Some interesting news for Truck Series sponsorship. In terms of race sponsorship, iHeartRadio has bought the title sponsor rights to Gateway's NASCAR Truck Series race this June.
So we have two one-off entrants for this year's Freedom 100 at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Jarrett Andretti, who's the son of John Andretti, is set to compete for Andretti Autosport, and USAC driver Chris Wyndham is set to drive for Belardi with NOS sponsorship.
Getting back to Gateway, Gateway has a new name. With sponsorship from Worldwide Technology, Gateway Motorsports Park will now be known as Worldwide Technology Raceway at Gateway.
Long Beach was a pretty interesting race weekend, not just for the NTT IndyCar Series, but also the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. It was the Bubba Burger Sports Car Grand Prix of Long Beach, and for the second year in a row, the Mustang Sampling Racing Cadillac DPI, driven by Felipe Albuquerque and Joao Barbosa, took the overall victory. Penske's Acura DPIs finished second and third. And then Alexander Rossi put on an absolute clinic in the IndyCar race, winning by near 20 seconds. Joseph Newgarden takes home P2, and in a post-race penalty, Graham Rahal falls off the podium as a result of blocking. Scott Dixon jumps onto the podium. Rossi's win over Newgarden was the largest margin of victory in the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach since 1995, when Al Jr. Prevailed over Scott Pruitt.
So we had some good old short track action at the Action Track, Richmond. Cup and Xfinity visited there last weekend. It was Cole Custer collecting his second win of the season and the Dash for Cash. And in the Cup Series, Martin Truex Jr. finally gets his first short track win.
So F1 was off to China. It was the 1000th Formula One race, and other than a exciting first lap, it was pretty much Lewis Hamilton putting on a clinic. He took home the victory. Valtteri Bottas second, and Sebastian Vettel third.
There's some news from our favorite IndyCar / I'm not really committed to IndyCar team owner, Zach Brown. He announced that McLaren is more than likely going to join the NTT IndyCar Series. It's a matter of when than if.
So thanks to a little bit of news from Adam Stern, it looks like the Gold Coast return to IndyCar racing is looking a little bit more unlikely. Just due to timing issues, it looks like we might not see IndyCar racing return to Australia in 2020, but it is still a possibility.
So NASCAR and Steve O'Donnell announced the All-Star package for the 2019 All-Star race. So some highlights of what was changed. The overall race was kept relatively the same, with an additional 5 laps added to the final segment. There will also be a radiator opening exhaust vent in the hood, along with a single-piece carbon fiber splitter, so all teams could not manipulate the air.
So it looks like the hottest rumor in the IndyCar paddock right now is Rossi to Penske, which may seem a little a little blurry in some people's minds. Rossi being a Honda driver, driving for Andretti right now, having big success at Andretti, but driving for the captain really got to make you think, where is Alexander Rossi going to be driving next year?
Another young gun driver that's possibly on the move is reigning Indy Lights champion Pato O'Ward. He has currently had talks with Chip about possibly going to a third car for Ganassi, or possibly a second entry with McLaren.
So some sad news this week on the Pit Limiter podcast. Brenda Jackson, who is the mother of Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Kelly Earnhardt Miller, passes away at the age of 65 after her battle with cancer.
So we reported on this in an earlier podcast, but NASCAR has increased their bid to buy out the International Speedway Corporation, effectively handing them reigning control over 11 or so NASCAR tracks.
So it was reported that J.R. Hildebrand is going to run for Dreyer and Reinbold Racing in the Indy 500 once again, with sponsorship from Salesforce. His teammate for the race will be Sage Karam, and Hildebrand is going to run the number 48 in honor of the late Dan Gurney.
Some news sweeping through the F1 paddock. Russian billionaire Dmitry Mazepin is in talks with Williams in buying a controlling stake in the team.
So, unfortunate to see, but Christian Eckes was hospitalized due to food poisoning, which kept him from competing in the final ARCA race at Salem. It was Michael Self who won the rain-shortened race.
Jenson Button, who had been competing with S&P Racing in the World Endurance Championship, is now out at S&P Racing. He stated that he needed some more time with his family, and as a result, he has been replaced with other former McLaren driver Stoffel Van Dorn.
Per Adam Stern, NASCAR and its teams are holding their quarterly team owner council meeting, and the development of the Gen 7 car was discussed among other topics.
And our final bit of news for Stop and Go this week: Fernando Alonso is unlikely to remain at Toyota Gazoo Racing for the World Endurance Championship in the next super season. A Toyota spokesperson said that they would not comment on whether or not former Porsche WEC driver Brendan Hartley would replace Alonso alongside Buemi and Nakajima.
So that's going to wrap it up for Stop and Go. We're going to go with our second edition of Tuesday Trivia. Remember, tweet us your answers at the Pit Limiter on Twitter. So, this week's question. All right, John, you ready?
I think I am.
All right, I hope you are. So, Will Power, IndyCar Series champion, Indy 500 champion. He's driven 6 different numbers in his IndyCar Series career. What are those 6 numbers, and what teams were they with?
So I can tell you this: he has ran the 1, 12, and 3 with Penske.
Correct.
He's ran the 8 with KVP Racing? Or KV Racing.
Yes.
He ran the 20, I believe, with Walker Racing?
No.
I know he was with Walker Racing.
Yes.
Trying to think of the number. How many numbers do I have so far? 4?
You've got 4 out of the 6, and I'll give you a hint since you got those pretty quickly. So, the last 2 numbers are actually with Walker Racing.
Ooh. I just got to think Walker Racing numbers. I want to say 15 for some reason.
No.
Oh, that was Simon Pagenaud with Walker.
Yes.
Oof. I don't know. This is a good one. I tell you what, this is a good one.
So the first one was a one-off in 2005. He ran full-time the first time in 2006. That was his rookie year.
Did he ever run 17?
No, sir.
You know what? I'm just gonna have to throw the towel in on this one. I'm not for certain, and I'm not gonna look it up.
All right, I was impressed. Not gonna lie. 2008 he ran the number 8 for KV. He ran the 3 for Elio when he had his court deal, and then obviously 12 and 1. His first number that he ever ran in Champ Car / IndyCar / whatever you want to call it, 25 when he drove for Walker Racing, the Aussie Vineyards car. It was his first start. It was a third. Aussie Vineyards car. It was in Surfers Paradise. So that was his first. That was the first car that he drove. Then 06, 07, he ran a number 5 Aussie Vineyards car.
That's what it was. The 5. Darn.
Yep. Yeah, Walker Racing ran 5, 15, and 25. So yeah.
Well, I was close. I had 50. I had 15.
Yeah, so that's
I somehow guessed Pagano.
You got that one right at least. So that's Tuesday trivia. We've got a very special guest this week, and actually, I'm really excited about this one. Not gonna lie. So, man, where do I start? Road to Indy, USF 2000 driver, NASCAR Euro Series driver, student at University of Chicago. So Andre Castro is here. What's up, buddy?
Hey, Zach. Good to be on the show. Good to finally be on a podcast. This is my first one, so really excited.
That's good to have you here. I mean, so I'm just looking at all your stats, looking at these articles about you, looking at where you got the inspiration to start racing. And you said in an interview with Robbins Racing that you got the inspiration from JPM, Juan Pablo Montoya. He Colombian. Your parents are of Colombian heritage, correct?
Yeah. So when I was a kid, I think it was ever since he was in karts, so like '99. That's when I was born. But then when I was, old enough to kind of know what was going on, like 3 or 4 years old, that's when he was in Formula One with BMW. And yeah, just a lot of mornings waking up like 8 a.m. I guess, and looking at or I guess hearing the cars first. How they had the V10s back then, so it was pretty crazy to see that and get up that early in the morning to watch. But that's what I would do, and I had like my own Williams BMW jacket that I wore when I was like 3. But when I was 6 was when I really started to get into racing, and that was like NASCAR. It was like my first real love for racing.
So you started out in karts. How old were you when you first got into kart racing?
I was 7, so.
Oh geez.
Pretty small.
So where'd you grow up racing? I mean, obviously you probably traveled a little bit, but what was your first home for kart racing?
My first home was here in New York. It was like 2 hours up the road in Oakland Valley. It was called Oakland Valley Race Park. That's where Marco Andretti started. That's where I raced against Santino a lot when I was like 8, 9. And his dad owned the track at the time. He was very fast, obviously. Yeah, so I did that for like between there and Englishtown, New Jersey for maybe 4 years, 5 years. It wasn't very serious, and then did my first national race in Daytona actually, and that's when I kind of started taking racing more seriously and started doing nationals, and then it led into Skip Barber and all that. So yeah, it took a while for it to develop. I wasn't on some sort of like Max Verstappen path from when I was a young kid. It was just a lot, for fun for a few years.
Looking at all your accomplishments, your resume, what all you've done, it looks to me like, adapt on the fly. Opportunities are limited. I mean, how much of it really is that? Opportunities are limited. You got to make the most of what you got right now.
Yeah, it's been that every time I've gotten in a car, because with Skip Barber, we were able to win our first race, which was cool. But then after that, I had like 7 or 8 weekends, so that was the one time where I really was able to kind of get familiar with the car, and that was interesting as the year went on. It was actually a little tougher, so it was just we had a really smooth start, and then as like the year kept going, I had some more problems. But yeah, everything else I think I've done little to no testing in, and in this Euro NASCAR car, I had I think 40 laps in the car before Valencia. And it wasn't with my team. I basically met my team at the track that week for the first time. So yeah, it's a lot about like, I don't know, preparing on iRacing or like whatever sim has the track that I'm about to go to, and just like, I don't know, what I know from the mistakes that I made. So I made a lot of mistakes. So you learn from those, and basically from my knowledge of racing, because like you guys, I'm a really big like fan and I'm a real student of the sport. So learning from all that, kind of you have to take all that and apply it, and you know because it's not like I guess kids with a lot of funding or even in any other sport where it doesn't cost so much to practice. It's like all right, we got our first season, we can mess up as much as we want, we got time, right? But when you're on a budget, it's really difficult. You can't really mess up because then you won't have another chance to improve. So you really have to pounce on every opportunity you get.
That's a good transition to my next question I was going to ask you. So you ran the F1600 up in Mont Tremblant. You ran in USF 2000, which is actually interesting. You ran for Newman Walks, which for anybody
Yeah.
that doesn't know, that team was co-founded by the late Paul Newman. Which that team was brought back. I believe their first season they came back was the first year that you drove for them. Correct?
Yeah, the first year they came back, I think in 8 years was the year that I drove for them and drove for them for 2 races. Um, and we just didn't have enough testing and it was kind of a struggle. We were able to get two top tens, but also two DNFs. So that and it was just a big budget series compared to Euro NASCAR. It was pretty massive. So yeah, I wasn't able to race for like 2 years since then. That was my last competitive race was in Barber a couple years ago until this weekend. So it's been a long time. I was really ready to come back.
We were kind of talking about this off the air in terms of budget, and I mean, obviously, road to Indy, it's not cheap, but you said it was like right at ballpark range, like 400,000 to run in a competitive ride the whole season.
Yeah, that's correct. I'd say at least if you're a really good driver, well, I haven't gotten the deal, so I can't really speak on this. But yeah, I'd say average would be around 300. Could go up to 400. Really depends on like versus like what team you run with, crash damage. I guess there's a lot of factors involved. Yeah.
Gosh,
Wow.
So
Ver-
it's pretty tough. It's tough to raise the money to go racing for a whole year. So yeah, two races, two weekends is 4 races. Was really the most we could do.
so I guess I mean, kind of looking at it from this aspect, at that level, it's the road to Indy, but it's the first step. How much are you really able to raise funding wise via sponsorship, or is it all personal backing?
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, you see all the cars, and usually it's the company their dad has or they're affiliated with, and or it definitely helps throughout your dad's connections or people connections like that. That's pretty much where your sponsorship is going to come from. It's tough to and I've seen it done before, which it's rare, but it's possible. And we just weren't able to secure the funding to keep going that year.
So you ran the 3 hours of Bogota. Uh,
Oh yeah,
tell me a
I did
little.
do
Tell me
that.
a little bit about that. I mean, what's that like?
Yeah, it's like I mean, I don't know if anybody here knows about that race, but it's a chill race. Like like in my class there were 3 cars, I think, and we ended up like so the team forgot to put fuel in the car in qualifying, so we started last, like literally behind all the GT cars because we were in a Caterham Academy car, which is like it's kind of like a Formula Ford type speed. So we were faster than the GTs, but we had to start all the way in the back. And yeah, I did the second half of the race, so it was 3 hours. My partner did the first half, so an hour and a half, and then I did the second half. And yeah, it was a pretty fun experience. Like I think we ended up winning by 3 laps, and we finished third overall too. Um,
Gosh.
but yeah, there was I did the race in 2016 too, where we won like a GT class, and the track started coming apart in turn one. That was pretty fun. Uh, but in general, it's just like it was a little more laid back than what we have in the U.S. And I was able to really like enjoy myself and just race around a lot of other cars because I think there were like 30 on the track. There's a lot of categories, so there's like 30 cars. There's constant like coming, going traffic. So yeah, it's a good time. Like it allowed me to stay sharp for sure. And I would go back and do it again.
So racing in an atmosphere like that, or like conditions like that, where you've got multiple classes, you got I mean, I could imagine almost every lap you've got something going on around you. Slower cars, faster cars, whatever. Has sports car racing never, have you ever considered maybe like an IMSA career or something like that if the funding materialized?
Yeah, dude, I could get funding to run like stadium super trucks or like lawnmowers, and I'll race it honestly because it's so hard to find because
Yeah.
it just depends where your openings come. And I've always been a big IMSA fan. And the first race I watched really, like how do I put it? Like every year, the only race that I watched outside of like NASCAR and maybe some Formula One races was the Rolex 24. Ever since I was a small kid, so I've always really loved the 24 at Daytona. More recently, like Le Mans and all that stuff. And like, there's a lot of opportunities there. There's a lot of seats compared to open wheel and stuff like that. But up until this point, I have looked at that route, but nothing has really materialized. So we'll just see, how Euro NASCAR goes, and I think a lot of those skills that I can learn over in Europe would be applicable to sports car racing too. So like to answer your question, yeah, I mean I had a good time in Colombia, and I would have a good time racing IMSA or whatever it is really. I think it all just depends on like I guess every person's different and the connections they make are different, and I guess you kind of have to follow the flow wherever it takes you.
Looking at, like the different tests you've done and the different races you've ran, I mean, you've outrun guys like Oliver Askew, Matty Brabham, Kyle Kirkwood, which I think he's a future IndyCar star. I mean, Oliver Askew as well. Beating guys like that, having that on your resume, I mean, what's that mean if you're looking at potential sponsors?
I think it's pretty good. It's different now because I'm doing almost like a pretty unrelated type of racing now. But it was good to do. Like it felt good at the time because it's like okay, like I can run with these guys and like beat them, and that gave me a lot of confidence. I'd say to sponsors, it's um I'd say especially if you're shopping outside of your immediate area, it doesn't mean too much just because firstly they're not big names really. Like they're not like a Scott Dixon or a Will Power, so to a lot of people that won't necessarily mean too much. But also, I think a lot of it is what you can bring to their, into their business in terms of deals at the track between other businesses type thing, or exposure, like things like that. So I think, in terms of sponsorship, I'm not really sure how much that helps, but it would be helpful, this year in NASCAR to really win some races and say, well, we beat guys like Myatt Snyder and things like that, and in actual races, because I never really got to race too much against Kirkwood or Askew. I think I raced against Askew once, and I did beat him, but yeah, it's tough. It's always tough, and everybody's a different brand per se, and every series is a different niche, so it's tough to find the sponsors, but I guess having something like that on your resume doesn't hurt either. So yeah, it was cool.
So looking at your experience per se, Skip Barber's Formula Tour, and now with NASCAR Whelen Euro, what would you say is the most unique racetrack that you've had the pleasure of visiting, and what's the most challenging one that you just couldn't get your head around?
Yeah, dude, I'd say Tremblant was the most beautiful racetrack, if that counts as unique. It was, oh my God, man, like 'cause
Absolutely.
we went over there in like late September, and the trees were like golden or like orange or something. Like it was just the atmosphere, and they were all like, it was just unbelievable, really. And I'd never been to Canada before, so that gave me a really high opinion of Canada. I really want to go back and race there someday. And yeah, Tremblant is also like a ski resort town, so like we stayed in that town, and like there's a ski lift, and it's like really beautiful. And the track itself, it was really challenging because basically turn one is there's like a chicane, but we weren't running that, so it was like a blind uphill, almost flat out corner where you'd really lose the rear end over the crest. It was pretty scary. That was pretty challenging. Great track. I'd say St. Petersburg was really difficult. Firstly, because I had a 103-degree fever the weekend I raced there. But
Oh my.
secondly,
Gosh.
I think it was just the walls everywhere. Like, I guess, yeah, at Tremblant you had some room to go off, but at St. Pete, you make a mistake and you hit the wall, and I found out that the hard way. So yeah, St. Pete was really a difficult track, and I would hope that one day I would go back and make it right with that track because, like, man, it was just a rough weekend.
I mean, I can understand with St. Pete. I mean, it's caught out the best. I mean, I think that year willpower backed into the wall
Yeah, he
going.
really did. Yeah, and it's and that year that I ran it, they had like an extra corner basically because
Oh yeah, that's right.
they
That is
they
right.
redid they redid the track basically. I think they repaved part of it, and that bump was big and it was catching out some drivers. And I would just kind of hit it straight, so it was fine for me. But I guess it caught out some drivers, so they added I don't even know how to explain it. It's like a tiny little turn. You
Yeah, it
know what
was
I'm
like a
talking about?
chicane.
Yeah.
Yeah, they
So
It was
added
like
some curbs.
micro chicane
it
almost to
was
it.
it was really dumb. I hated it.
Kind of
And it
reminds
caught
me
me
of
out
like
for sure.
Baltimore.
So it was annoying, but it's kind of annoying that the one year I was there was that corner was there. But honestly, I learned so much that weekend. Like I said before, like you just got to learn from your mistakes and become stronger that way. Because there's so many different types of mistakes you can make in a race car that you just kind of have to find out. Okay, I made this one. I'm gonna correct that, and then another. It's like whack-a-mole. Like another issue is gonna pop up over here, and and then you're like, okay, I know that one now. So, yeah, that taught me about like building up to speed, pushing the limits, and when there's walls around, there's no better teacher of staying on the track and driving within your limits.
Absolutely. And Zach, Baltimore was a whole nother animal.
Well,
We're,
yeah.
we're
I
Can't
not
mean,
even
going to talk.
imagine.
We're not even
Yeah,
no,
going to
yeah,
talk
yeah.
about the train tracks. At least it
Well,
wasn't as
okay.
bad as San Jose. We can
Yeah,
all agree on that.
yeah, it's a comparison, like how about Houston? Is that
Which
is that
time?
I gosh, yeah. I mean, that's a more fair comparison, I would say. Uh gosh, yeah, that talking about train wrecks of a racetrack, no pun intended.
for
Yeah.
sure.
So, Andre, I see you're majoring in business economics at the University of Chicago. Why don't you tell me a little bit about that? Of course, myself, I'm not sure if you're familiar with my background. I graduated with a degree in business, working on my master's in business. So I'm just curious of what brought you to the field of business economics.
I think that a lot of it was, my passion for racing and basically realizing what it takes to make it in that kind of field. Not only, as a driver, shopping yourself around for sponsors, it can get really tiring, but that's part of it. But also, I really look up to guys like, Roger Penske and Chip Ganassi, who, especially, Penske has his really successful trucking company, but he was able to become such an iconic motorsport figure, and such an important leader and respected leader. So guys like that are really my inspiration. And at this point, I'm 20, I'm in my second year, but really the possibilities are really open once I graduate. And I had some experience doing a couple different types of things, financial accounting and stuff like that. Useful skills, but to be real with you, the one thing I've always wanted to do is be a race car driver, and that's always going to be my goal. But everything outside of that, I think I'm just going to keep gaining experience at the different jobs I take or different internships, and I'll kind of just shape what I want to do around that. Right now, I don't know what my goal is after college. A couple years to figure it out. So yeah, it's been good. Chicago's really cold. That's rough sometimes in the winter, but school itself is super challenging and demanding, and um, but you just kind of rise to the occasion, I guess, no matter what it is. So yeah, it gets rough sometimes, but I think in the end it'll be worth it, hopefully. And I didn't know that you studied business. That's pretty cool. I know you're farther ahead on your track than I am, but hopefully when I'm at your stage, I'll have it a little bit more figured out.
Believe me, I'm at this stage and I don't have it figured out.
That's okay though. No one really does, right?
Exactly, exactly.
Maybe like a couple people.
So I just want to hit on this, college stuff. So right now you're, traveling to and from Europe to do NASCAR Euro and such like that. How are you balancing? How is like the balance of, school life and, say going to Europe and race in Valencia? You
Yeah,
know.
so I'm not balancing it. I have what's called a quarter system. So basically, instead of like 2 semesters, I have 3 quarters, which it should be trimesters, but technically the fourth quarter is summer, I guess, which usually people don't take too many classes in the summer. So
I
think
didn't
of it
even
as
know
like a
you were
trimester
pregnant.
system. Yeah. Um, and so we have one from September to December, and then another from January to March. So I finished that one. Actually, during that quarter, I had to go and test the Euro NASCAR in France. That was pretty tough. I had to balance that for sure because I had like a midterm and an essay due the next week. So on the plane and the train and everything, I had to really like work hard. It was really rough. But yeah, after March, I did my finals, and there's another quarter right now going on until June. It's just a weird schedule because of how the quarter system works out. But I'm actually not in school right now, so I'm taking this quarter off. It's the first time I've done that, and I'm coming back in the fall. Supposedly, that's the plan. Just wanted to, take advantage of this really big opportunity with Euro NASCAR because with school, we're not really losing anything financially. We're not paying for another semester or anything like that. So we figured it was just smart to go and focus on these 3 races that we have right now, and see what we can do. But yeah, the quarter system also, they're 10 weeks. And so literally every week you have a test basically, and it's really horrible sometimes in terms of workload, but it's good because you can take more classes and things like that. But yeah, I'm happy that right now I'm focusing on racing because I think that had something to do with going to Valencia and being able to put such a strong foot forward because that wasn't, that was my number one priority by far. And right now I'm getting to relax a little bit, apply for jobs in the summer, and focus on getting the sponsorship required to finish the year.
Absolutely. You had to break my thunder. I wanted to know how you were doing it. You took
Dude,
the
France-
win.
I was gonna ask. Yeah,
I did.
that would be
in
crazy.
In high school, I did too. I missed I did the Skip Barber. So I had a Skip Barber 2-day school. Then I had a Skip Barber championship race, which was my first race. It was a one-off at the end of 2015, so I could prepare for the scholarship shootout. So I had the 2-day, the race, and then the scholarship shootout all in 10 days in New Orleans. And I had to miss 2 weeks of school, and that was really bad. And especially with St. Pete and Barber when I was doing USF, I also was in school, and it's just at a certain point, I think at that level it's manageable, but at a certain point, it really gets to be two conflicting things. So I don't know. It's good to be able to have this quarter system be lenient and kind of let me focus on my racing for a bit.
Absolutely. I wish I kind of had that. I mean, right now I have 2 7 weeks, so just imagine how much gets crammed into that.
No, yeah, it gets so busy, man. I mean, just as well as I do how hard college is.
It can be. It can be, but if you have the right professors and you find the right path, you fine.
Yeah, it's just yeah, I guess you're right. You just have to gel with the right people, and Chicago's just always had such a reputation of being such a, I don't know, terrible, depressing kind of place just because of how much work there is. And it's it's tough, but I don't know. Hopefully it'll be worth it in the end. I've made some good friends and been able to have some good times as well, despite how difficult it's been. So, I mean, that's always been another part of my life. It's always been. I think a lot of kids grow up at the racetrack and that's their main focus, and they'll end up being homeschooled or not really go to college. And honestly, it sounds like a good life, but for me, I've always had that identity of going to school and having my life here in New York and now Chicago. So it's a lot of different facets and friends in different places, which is also really nice. So I don't know. It's got its negatives and its positives.
I was just going to say one more thing that I noticed from this. How does a race car driver become a semi-professional actor? I have a major question about that. How does that happen?
You can ask Patrick Dempsey. He did it. I mean, it's the other way around, I'd say, for him. But and Paul Newman. I was in high school, and yeah, I first I sang in the chorus, so that was cool. I did that for 4 years, and then when I was in junior year of high school, we had at my high school, it was basically a bunch of nerds. So the biggest event of our school year was not a football game or any sports game. It was this month-long period where the students would write, produce, and star in a musical, basically, and it was a competition between grades. So they would put the freshmen and sophomores together. So that was one team, and then the juniors would be a team, and then the seniors would be a team. So it'd be 3 teams, and the students ran everything from there's a makeup team, there was many dance teams, there was a chorus, there was actors, there were behind the scenes production teams like lights, sound, and there was all students. So I decided to audition that year to be an actor, and I got the lead role. So that was that was the biggest role I've ever had, and it was my first role, and it was pretty crazy. It was insane. And then in college, I managed to do a couple shows. I did a musical and I did another type of show, and it was pretty exciting. It was something to do besides my classes, and it's just a nice little way to I guess make yourself not go crazy just focusing on school.
I know
So,
that. I know that feeling all too well. But
yeah.
man, your biggest event was that.
Yeah, we had like it was like $30 tickets, and it was like I think the capacity was like 850 people in the theater, and we sold out. So it was pretty great. In college, it's a little bit more of a niche thing, I guess, because it's like actual theater, you know. Like in high school, that wasn't really. It was like a huge event type thing. It wasn't just theater kids doing it. But in college, we don't really have that. So I ended up doing a couple shows, basically with the theater, and they're a little smaller, but they're a lot of fun. Um, I didn't do it this year. I did it last year. Just taking a little break this year. But yeah, it's always good to know that I can go back to that and have some good times and learn some things from different people.
So the NASCAR Euro Series side of things, kind of. I mean, like I know your story with that, but kind of give our audience a little bit of background of how you were given that opportunity to do what you do now.
Yeah, so literally, I was in college. That's another good segue. I was in college in my bed. I was like procrastinating homework, and I was looking. I always just look, just like any racing fan kid that wants to like be a race car driver. I'm always like, oh, let's look for scholarships. I'm apply to every scholarship we can, or I can. And so I ended up like on the 5th page of this Google search, and I don't know why it was such an obscure thing because I thought it was pretty cool. I ended up finding the Whelen Euro Drivers Recruitment Program, and that is basically that you sent in your resume, and if they like what they saw, they invited you to go test the car. So that's what happened. So I sent my resume in, and I guess they invited me to come over to Italy and test the car. So I did that right after finals, actually, in December. So I went over there. I only even got a handful of laps in the car. I think it's mostly to, yeah, I don't know. Like they just had so many drivers splitting like 2 cars. So none of us got too many laps in the car. It was so cold too. So it was basically just to get to know the people there in the series. And I met the CEO of the series, Jerome Galpin. He's really he's such a unique guy. He's on top of everything all the time. He's actually came from rallying, and I don't even know how he started this. He started a Euro race car series back in like 2009. It wasn't affiliated with NASCAR. I don't even know the story behind that. But eventually, I think 2012, 2013, NASCAR started sanctioning it, and since then, he's been able to orchestrate like a lot of cross platform transfers, I guess. Like there's a Euro driver that went over to race in Pinty Series last year, and the champions like Alon Day and my team owner Anthony Kumpin, they've been able to race in the U.S. In like the Xfinity Series, and Alon Day was racing the Cup Series. So it's been really successful, I think, and it really excited me. And honestly, it was just so budget efficient compared to even the lowest ladder on the road to Indy, which was great. And you get so much exposure. At Valencia there were a lot of fans there, which was really cool. And at Brands Hatch we get I think 40 or 50,000, which is our biggest race of the year, and it's insane. Or so I've heard. So I'm really excited for that race, which is coming up soon. But yeah, so after that test in Italy, I was put in contact with, or no, first I got invited again to test it in France. We went tested in France, and then I was put in contact with Anthony Kumpin, who runs a really professional organization. He has a 2-car team, and I was basically put in the 24 car, which was cool. And yeah, I didn't even get to see him or anything before the first weekend, so we kind of just showed up to the first weekend. We talked over the phone, we emailed, and yeah, we just kind of showed up, and we were like, all right, let's see what we can do. And I'd say it went pretty well.
Would you consider the Euro Series more of a stepping stone, like maybe like how the K&N series? Would you consider that more of a stepping stone, or would you consider that a career choice?
Yeah, I'd say it's a stepping stone. But I don't know. I guess you'd have to ask like Alon Day because he's the 2-time defending champion in the Elite One category, which is basically as high as you can get. But as you can see, he's trying to come over to the U.S. and do some stuff here. I think it is a stepping stone, but I also think that like it's growing pretty explosively, and that's another thing was I didn't know how much it would grow in 2020, 2021, but when I joined, I saw how much it had grown in the past couple of years, and I thought that was really impressive. And I think, fortunately, the budgets haven't caught up with that. So it was just a really good time to get my foot in the door in NASCAR and in the Euro Series. And just basically, it was just by far and away the best option for me to race, and the only option I had really this year. I think if it wasn't for the Euro Series, I wouldn't be racing this year at all. So yeah, I think it is a stepping stone, but again, it's growing really fast. So I think in the next couple of years we might see more focus on it as a career path. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see how it grows a little bit more.
So your first weekend out in Valencia, if I remember correctly, you were leading going into the final corner, correct?
Yes, I was.
And you weren't leading coming out of the final corner.
No, it was 24th.
So our good friend, let's see, who was it that sent you off there?
It was a Truck Series Rookie of the Year.
Sorry, I had to throw that out there because I like Myatt, but that was I had to throw that out there. So yeah. So you and Myatt got into it a little bit. Relegated you to 24th, and then you bounced back to a second place on Sunday. What I guess what was that interaction like with him after that race?
It was really completely positive. It was about as positive as it could be after something like that. Yeah, we talked it out, and he came over and apologized, and I think we're moving forward really well. I think he's a person that you can reason with and really rationalize things with. I think when you're out on the track, what he did wasn't rational. I think if you would have thought about it in hindsight, obviously, it would have been a lot better to finish first and second, have the first American win or Euro Series race in 7 years, and come out of there with some good points for both of us. But at the end of the day, we're all racers, and I think he got carried away. And it's disappointing, with all the experience he has to make a move like that. But yeah, I think, like I said, he's a rational guy, smart guy, and we were able to talk it out after the race. So that was really refreshing to be able to talk like adults and sort it out going forward. But yeah, it was really a shame. The last couple of laps, I was thinking in my head because it was a green white checker actually, so under the pace laps I had a lot of time to think, and I was like, okay, something's gonna go wrong. I don't know what, but this is way too good to be true. I'm leading my first NASCAR race, and all my friends from home are watching, my family's watching. This is just too good to be true, man. Something's gonna happen, and then I didn't expect that to happen, but it did. So it's a shame, but I think the next day we bounced back, like you said, really well, and we came 1/10 of a second from winning. So I think I'm really really excited for the rest of the year. When I came into that race, I really just expected to be top 5, and I thought even that could be a little ambitious. I was like, I'll come out of here with the top 5. I'll be really happy. That's my pretty lofty expectation. And then seeing us leading, it's like, okay, now we can really go for it. We can focus on every race, every corner, and I think if we do that, we'll have a good chance at the championship.
No, I got to give him some credit because he did own up to his mistake on Twitter afterwards. Which I guess it's easy to do after the fact on social media, but he did own up to his mistake. He I believe something along the lines of the American flavor of aggressive stock car racing isn't as accepted over in Europe.
Flavor.
Yeah,
I think that's what it was.
Yeah, but I mean, we were talking about this earlier. It seems that the whole knock the guy out of the way to win the race, do whatever you got to do to win concept. It doesn't seem like that's as accepted over in Europe. It seems more like how Formula racing is, where it's elbows up, but there's definitely a fine line of what's accepted and what's not.
Yeah, I'd compare it more, to touring car racing because we have the fenders, so we can touch and not flip like in, a Formula car. And there's definitely a lot more room for, beating and banging and stuff like that. But yeah, there's no tolerance for dumping guys. I think in NASCAR these days, it's you get a penalty if you full throttle the guy, but pretty much everything else is allowed because theoretically, if there were no rules like that, I could go back out there and it's like self-policing, so I could just wreck Myatt in the next race or something, and I guess it all evens out or something. But yeah, here it's it's NASCAR, and we have green white checkers, and we have double file restarts, and we have a lot of the same rules that NASCAR has in the U.S. But at the same time, the culture is more European in terms of hard but fair racing, and little contact is all right, and I'm sure even encouraged. They like to see that for for the fans and for publicity. But yeah, any avoidable contact will be penalized. So that's just how it is over there, and that's how I've raced. Because I've done open wheel stuff. That's kind of how I've raced. So that's fine in my book, and I mean, we'll have to see how they officiate things the rest of the year. I'm interested to see how they're going to do that.
Now, did he get a penalty for that? For shoving you off?
Yeah, they took away all his points from that race, and so he can't. So we have a drop race, and we have our worst races dropped from the first rounds before the last two, which are the playoffs. I don't think you get a drop race there, but anywhere before that you get a drop race. So he basically, I think, got 0 points and no, he's not allowed to drop that race. I think maybe a couple other penalties, but I don't know. I mean, I think I guess that's a precedent they're going to set for the rest of the year. So we'll see if there's similar incidents in the future, how they'll react.
So you're visiting all these new racetracks with Whelen Euro. How are you preparing yourself for some of these new venues? Practice-wise, I should say.
Yeah, so I've actually in the past I've never been to a racetrack twice before. So basically every race I've ever done, I guess the Bogota race I did twice, so there's that. But besides that, I've never really been able to test too much. In the USF we tested at Indy and Homestead, and then I raced at St. Pete and Barber. So there was no testing beforehand, and with Skip Barber, obviously no testing because it was kind of a school series. So yeah, every time I go to a new racetrack, I just practice on the sim, just like everybody does, and I hope everybody would do, because like, come on, it's 2019. Like, if you're not like practicing on the sim, like you're basically just getting yourself off on a bad foot. And yeah, I actually heard this inspired me because I heard Lando Norris. He came out in Australia, qualified 8th from McLaren, which was huge for him. And I think he quoted that he said he practiced 600 laps on the Melbourne circuit in the simulator. We all know Lando's really big into like iRacing and different sims. So I didn't do as many. I didn't do 600 laps. I did probably like 100, 150 before Valencia. So yeah, I think that's just the biggest thing, is doing the sim. And a friend of mine and I actually kind of modded the car a little bit on our factor to make it more like the Euro car and less like the Cup car, because we have like half the horsepower that the Cup cars have. So it's a little different in that sense, and we're able to tweak it a little bit. And yeah, so it behaves actually a little bit like a Euro car, even though there's no official Euro mod or car anywhere on sim racing. But I think the biggest thing is just getting your sight points right, because in real life it's not going to handle exactly the same, even though it could be similar. So it's a lot about getting your braking technique and turn in point, and just knowing where the apexes are kind of by muscle memory. And I think doing a bunch of laps can only help that. And that's pretty much the only thing I can do, man. I can't really do anything else. I can't test on another track in real life. I can't really do anything. So I think another big thing I've been doing actually, though, is trying to heat train a little bit, because it gets really hot in those cars as opposed to Formula cars. So that probably will help a little bit in my next race. But the races are short. They're not very tough physically. So yeah, I'd say the biggest thing is just practicing on the simulator and really getting the track down in your head.
What about per se? Do you study any film? Or
yeah, I study a little bit of film. I have, like I said, my team owner is a 2-time champion of the series, so he's been able to send me some of his onboards from last year, and yeah, I can see what they're doing. For me, I learn more even on the simulator than I do watching, but it is good to be able to look at that. And throughout the weekend, from first practice to qualifying, I improved so much, mainly because of data. So that's another big thing I can do, is when I get to the track finally, I do some practice laps, and then especially because I have a teammate, you know, in Elite One, so I'm running Elite Two, which is sort of the more rookie division, and I have a teammate in the Pro division who races alongside Jacques Villeneuve and Alonde and those guys. He's really fast. He finished top 5 both races, so with him, I'm able to compare because we're literally driving the exact same car. So I'm able to compare with the data, and that helps me a lot to improve. So yeah, I'd say with the video, but mainly the data, I'd say those are two really big self-improvement tools.
Awesome.
I think that's all I got. John, do you got any more questions for Andre?
Not off the top of my head, but don't let me think because we'll be here all night.
I got time,
Well,
man. I'm not in
hey,
school.
I got one more question for you. All right, so I mean, you came from a karting background. Have you given any more thought to hopping back in a kart this year at all?
Yes, and that's because my good friend Xander Clements is involved down at Homestead with the car track, and with him, it's always fun to go down and see him. I've done it a couple times already. First time we just messed around. Second time I actually raced. I think I got a top 5 in the LO206, which
I
like
love 206.
yeah, it was pretty crazy racing, and I think I slept like 3 hours in 3 nights because Xander and
Gosh.
I kept not sleeping and just being dumb. So I wasn't that focused, but it was a good time. I'd say if I did it again, I'd want to do like an X30 type thing and put a little more effort into it, maybe sleep a little bit more and try to see what I could do down at Homestead. If I return, that's probably where it would be because you know, another thing when I was growing up here in New York, I grew up in the city, so I never even had my parents never owned a car in terms of like a road car. Like, you know, we just take the subway everywhere. So to go to the racetrack in upstate, you know, we'd have to rent a car. We'd have to leave the car at the track, and we'd have to the go-kart at the track, and we'd have to pay for it that way. So it was always really expensive to even head to your local go-kart track. So even here, you know, now I don't even have a car. I'm working on getting my driver's license. That is my goal for this summer. That is my number one goal. So I hope I get that. But yeah, it's tough to like, you know, head to a go-kart track. I don't own one right now. So I wish I did because I really miss it. But yeah, I'd say if I do return, it would be at Homestead, and I would be very excited for it. But you know, we'll have to see when that is. Could be this summer sometime. We'll have to see about it.
I'm gonna put a bug in your ear, and
Okay.
maybe this is a mistake. It's a little expensive, but if you ever get the chance, one kart race. I mean, I know you did Daytona, and that's I've never ran it, but I know guys that have, and an experience for sure. And if another experience is racing the Battle at the Brickyard, and I've ran it twice, and it's incredible. It's if you ever get the chance to run it. I mean, they let you do a parade lap around the big track on Friday, and it's so cool
Wow.
just to be there.
That's crazy, man. How was it? Like, what'd you run? LO206?
Ignite Senior, yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, yeah, 206, but it was the spec Ignite class. Everybody had the same tires, same motor, same chassis, same everything, and it was so. I did the first year I did an arrive and drive with Margay, and then last year I had my own kart, and we had 40. Like I think both years we had 45 plus karts in that class, and it's
Wow.
just incredible.
That does sound like a lot of fun, man. I miss the big events, you know, because I did Supernats twice, and that was, oh my God, that was insane. I miss it because I feel like I didn't get a proper shot at it. Uh, First year we had some kart problems, and then the second year I hit the wall in qualifying and destroyed my whole weekend. So I want to go back and do that really badly one day. I don't know when that day is going to be because yeah, it's a little expensive, and we're trying to, you know, put everything we have towards the Euro stuff right now. Um, but yeah, that Brickyard thing sounds fun, man. I mean, I know they race X30 there too.
Yeah,
I don't know what I would race. I could race 206, honestly. Like I had fun doing it in Miami. So yeah, we'll see, man. I hope I can get back in a kart sometime. Are you racing karts this year?
oh yeah, yep. Running Buckeye Karting Challenge, running OVKA stuff, doing some Ignite stuff as well, doing some street racing, just a mixture of things. But
Street racing.
yeah, there's a couple street races like USAC does the Elkhart Riverwalk Grand
Okay.
Prix, and then there's the Clyde Grand Prix, which that's more of a local thing, but still do it. I got third last year in that, so
Nice.
yeah, it's a lot of fun to do. But I will say, Margay does an arrive and drive for Indy. Totally worth it if you can afford it.
Okay.
Totally worth it.
Okay. Keep it in mind.
Yeah, definitely. So,
You guys make me sad. I'm too fat and blind to be in the cart.
dude, they got a heavy class.
Yeah, 206 has a heavy, man.
They do have a heavy.
They
class.
don't have a cart for a planet, so.
Hey, man. It's a bit rough. I think you got it, man.
All right. Well, I think that's a good way to end off on this one. Andre, tell us where we can find you on social media.
Okay, so go to my website, andrecastorracing.com, and it has everything there. It has at the top, it has my Facebook, it has my Instagram, and my Twitter, and my YouTube. So it's all there. To be more specific, Instagram and Facebook are Andre Castro Racing, or on Instagram at Andre Castro Racing. Twitter is A Castro Racing because for some reason I guess the full name was too long. So yeah, A Castro Racing on Twitter, and then YouTube is also Andre Castro Racing. So yeah, pretty simple. And we're gonna be back in action in less than 3 weeks now. So I guess 2.5 weeks in Italy. So I can't wait for that race. Already preparing. So it should be a good time.
Awesome. John, tell us where we can find you on social media, buddy.
All right, well, you can find me on Twitter at JSPoolIII. You can find me on Instagram at JSPoolIII_56. Also, you can check me out on my gaming channel, JP3 Gaming, or your nearest solar system.
Noted.
Gotcha.
Fun.
John was one of the first people I ever raced online against. I remember specifically we did an F1 league in NR 2003, and we were like coming out of the final corner at Road America, and we were drag racing to the line, and John put me in the wall, and he won. And so
I flipped across the line if it makes you feel better.
That was some
Surprise.
rubbish racing. That was some rubbish racing right there, man. In F1, like imagine if like Hamilton and Vettel just like started flipping across the line, man. It was pretty wild.
Gosh.
It would definitely, be a little more entertaining.
But that's where it all started for us, I was like 12.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Good times.
Good times. Yep. Sim racing's awesome.
Yeah.
Make sure you guys follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ZBCannon4. Follow my Facebook page. I post a lot of karting stuff on there at Zach Buchanan Racing. Make sure you guys subscribe to me on YouTube. Just my name, Zach Buchanan. Andre, it's been a blast, buddy. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, man. Hopefully I'll be on at some point in the near future. And I wish you guys the best. Thanks.
Awesome. Make sure you guys follow the podcast on Twitter at The Pit Limiter. Follow us on Facebook at The Pit Limiter Podcast. Subscribe to us on YouTube. We also upload episodes there if you're not checking us out on all major podcast platforms. And that's going to do it. We'll see you guys next week on the Pit Limiter Podcast. Goodbye, everybody.